Hey everybody. I know you've expected the most from Awesome History all year, but today's the day that I'm starting with my Illuminati glasses. If you have a tissue nearby, got my whole pile of napkins, because I guarantee you, by the time we're done, your brain is going to be exploded all over the screen. Just like that first day I promised where I'd knock your socks off, and I did it. This is my guarantee. Your brain will explode. So, I'm going to start you off easy. I'm going to start you off with an Animaniacs video. And you're going to see me disappear. But for the next 2 minutes, enjoy this time while your brain is still working. Because by golly, you're about to lose most of your powers.
Everybody lives on a street, in a city or a village or a town for what it's worth. And they're all inside a country which is part of a continent that sits upon a planet known as Earth. And the Earth is a ball full of oceans and some mountains which is out there spinning silently in space. And living on that Earth are the plants and the animals and also the entire human race. It's a great big universe and we're all really puny. We're just tiny little specks about the size of Mickey Rooney. It's big and black and inky and we are small and dinky. It's a big universe and we're not. And we're part of a vast interplanetary system stretching 700 billion miles long. With 9 planets and a sun, we think the Earth's the only one that has life on it, although we could be wrong. Across the interstellar voids are a billion asteroids, including meteors and Halley's Comet too. And there's over 50 moons floating out there like balloons in a panoramic trillion-mile view. And still it's all a speck amid 100 billion stars in a galaxy we call the Milky Way. It's 60,000 trillion miles from one end to the other, and still that's just a fraction of the way. 'Cause there's 100 billion galaxies that stretch across the sky, filled with constellations, planets, moons, and stars. And still the universe extends to a place that never ends, which is maybe just inside a little jar. It's a great big universe, and we're all really puny. We're just tiny little specks about the size of Mickey Rooney, though we don't know how we got here. We were born from out here. It's a big universe, and it's ours.
Alright, guys. Hope you remember you have that image of the Animaniacs just like laying down in the snow, passed out, gone. Because that's what you are going to be like in about 8 minutes, which I'm estimating how long this video is. So, before I jump into what we're going to talk about today, which is space, have you ever heard someone or seen someone just act like the center of the universe? Like, obviously me, because I do that all the time, but like someone who acts just like everything doesn't matter except for them. Like, they walk into the classroom and you expect them to like bow down and worship and like kiss their feet. That's how cool they think themselves are. And I want you to think now, if you've ever had that like person, I want you to think of, man, what could I possibly say to that person that would make them feel incredibly small? Well, today I'm going to teach you how to make that person feel incredibly small. In fact, every other thing I've taught you in history up to this point, everything in science, everything I've taught you about anything else doesn't matter compared to what I've taught you right now. Like, it's just going to seem so small, all right? Even Akamanto's probably like freaking out right now, worried that his brain's going to like fall out of his head. Hear me, Hanako Santa? I know you're listening. No one's scared of you, Hanako Santa, anymore. Because today we're going to start. So, I don't know if you recognize this picture on your screen, but this is the city of Columbus, Ohio. Pretty sure you have heard of that. Now, if you went and you stood next to one of those buildings, you'd obviously seem pretty small. So I want you to think of like the biggest building, and maybe you're thinking of that punk person. You can blame me, Grumpy Turtle, because I often act like it's the end of the world and everything's not going my way, so it better go my way. If Kate was here, She'd probably agree to that. She's in the next room, and I fully expect a smart comment at any point. So, but even if you just compared yourself to a billion, you'd be like, maybe, maybe I'm not that big of a person after all. Maybe I do need to share it with these, 7 billion people on this earth that God created. So, all right, if that building didn't make you feel small enough, I want to show you next is our continent. And our continent, as you know, is North America. So I want to just bring you to the next picture. North America, okay. So here we go. I'll move myself so I'll even show you the state that we live in. Wonderful. Here's Ohio. So now you might be thinking, well, all right, Mr. Eddie, I am really cool. You haven't really blown my mind yet. All right, so I get it. We live in Columbus or nearby, and that's in the state of Ohio. That's part of the country of the United States of America. Or as Riemann would love for me to say, we're part of America. Hear that, Riemann? We're Americans. As much as you don't like me to joke around that way. But we're all part of North America. And North America, as you see, is really pretty big. I mean, you got the scale here. An inch is 640 miles. That's huge. I mean, 1 inch, 640 miles? That's giant. What? Remember that. Remember that inch and remember that scale because we're going to change that scale in just a moment. All right? So this is what our continent looks like, North America. So you might be wondering, well, how does North America look on Earth? Come on, Mr. Gotti. I'm not feeling really small just yet. All right, well, here's our Earth. All right. I'm sure you've seen this a million times. Why are you wearing your glasses, Mr. Gatti? This isn't Illuminati stuff. This is boring. I learned this when I was like 5. All right. Well, just in case you haven't, here's North America and the vast Pacific Ocean over here and the vast Atlantic Ocean over here. So you can see even though our continent is pretty small compared to Earth, okay? So this is what I need you to do. Next picture is the first time your brain's going to leak a little bit. So I'm just going to take this. I'm going to waste this napkin, but that's okay. So my brain doesn't fall out of my nose. Legit, for the rest of this video, I'm going to keep my brain in my nose. Or keep my brain in my nose, keep my brain in my head. All right, so here we go. Here we go, we got this. I would suggest that you do the same, and even if you need to like plug your ears, like that's okay. But it's actually true that brain fluid can leak out your nose, but that's for another awesome history at another time. So I'm keeping my brain in there. So this is Earth, you understand that, okay? I want to show you a picture of Earth from space, okay? Here it is. This is a very famous picture called the pale blue dot. And you might be thinking, well, where the heck is Earth? Well, it's called the pale blue dot because you see this tiny little dot right there? That's Earth. All right, so now you might be thinking, big deal. I get it. Earth is space. It's one of 8 planets in our solar system. Where was this picture taken from? Big deal. This picture was taken just outside of Saturn, just past it, which is millions of miles away. And the fact that we are able to have cameras and telescopes that can take a picture from that far is pretty impressive. But that's Earth in our solar system, which is billions of miles long. Just our solar system, okay? So I'm going to leave it on that picture for just a minute so you can just kind of absorb just like how far that is, okay? I feel my brain leaking onto these tissues, but that's okay. I'm not going to take them out. I kind of look like a walrus, and it's kind of a good look for me, all right? So I want to show you, what does our solar system look like? All those planets, all those asteroids, all those comets and meteors. And we've only got one star in our solar system, the sun, and I'm sure Baron von Steuben right now is all like, our sun is a yellow dwarf star, because she said that in an extra email for me, which is actually true. Good job, Baron von Steuben. It is a yellow dwarf star. What I'm going to show you next is going to blow your mind the first time. So here we go. All right, see down at the bottom of our screen, we have our solar system. Just a moment. That's our Earth within 1 billion miles of our solar system. And now here's our tiny little dot of the solar system. What the heck are you showing me, Mr. DeGatti? So see this little tiny dot? You can't really see it. In that dot is our sun. And all our planets, all our meteors, all our moons, all our dwarf planets and comets, everything that we can see in our solar system is that tiny little dot right there. All right? So I want you to feel yourself. If your head's getting squishy, it just means your brain's getting ready to pop. All right? So that's our solar system. This galaxy here, I'm actually going to ask you what it's called. Quick, what's it called? Yeah, great job, Nicholas, because I know Nicholas got it. Nicholas is right. This is the Milky Way galaxy, okay? And this galaxy is trillions of miles wide and long across from this end to the other, all right? It is incomprehensibly huge, and it spins and rotates around a black hole at its center. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what on earth? Why are your tissues still in your nose? Mr. Gaddy, do you have any brains left? All right. Well, I actually want to show you because in space, there's something bigger than galaxies. So we've got our Milky Way galaxy, and the next thing is called a galaxy cluster. And I'd be like, my brain is a cluster right now, Mr. DeGatti. A cluster of confused brain cells. Like, why am I looking at an Illuminati with tissues in his nose? I don't know. But I'm going to tell you this, if you've made it this far, a galaxy cluster, if you can imagine, is like a cluster of grapes. But instead of each piece of fruit being this big, each piece of fruit is like hundreds of billions of miles long. So let's look. This is our supercluster. See this tiny little dot, the Milky Way? That's this giant thing, billions of miles long, is now only this big. Here's our Milky Way. And we are part of a incomprehensibly huge galaxy supercluster called Laniakea. And that is a Hawaiian word for immense heavens or immeasurable heavens. And that just means it keeps going. And doesn't it look like it keeps going for forever? So, like, anytime where I'm acting all dramatic, like I'm the center of the universe, whatever's going on in my classroom is the most important, you can just be like, dude, Mr. Gaddy, you are no Laniakea. In fact, the first person who says that to me in class, whether in person or online, and says, Mr. Gaddy, you are no Laniakea, I will give you whatever nickname you want for your own choosing. So, like, that's huge, all right? So, you are no Laniakea, Mr. Gaddy. All right, now you might be thinking, okay, so we've gotten to this point. My brain's already exploded on the floor. I need to get a rag to mop it up and squeeze it back into my head. Because this little dot has another little dot that has another little dot that has an even smaller little dot, and that little dot's me. And this is billions of miles. And this now here is trillions of miles, like light years across. All right. And remember, the amount of distance that light travels in a year is just short of 6 trillion miles. All right? So you can imagine this being huge. The next thing I want to show you is not just one supercluster, but a picture of where our trillions of miles, our light years, our supercluster is. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, not only did my brain just leak out, but I wet myself. Don't worry, guys, I've also wet myself. And that's okay, because I want you to look at this scale right here at the top. That is an inch. And if you remember, our inch from this map was 640 miles. The inch from this map is 100 million light years. So 100 million times 6 trillion equals my brain fell out on the floor, and I bet you all did too. All right? So this little inch right here is how far light can travel in 100 million years. So just kind of showing you, if you just go right here across, that's about 8 inches. That's 800 million light years. That's not to mention all of this space down here. And all of these dots represent dots like this, which represent dots like this, which represent little planets like this, which represent little smaller versions of planets like that, which means little dots of land like this, and tiny little spaces like our city of Columbus. So I want you to just take a good look at that. That this is our supercluster, Laniakea. All right? Like, Mr. Gaddy, you are no Laniakea. And look, there are dozens of superclusters just like that. And you might be thinking, all right, Mr. Gaddy, I'm done. I don't even understand this now. But just look, there are parts of space called voids that have very little in them. Sometimes there's absolutely nothing that we can see. And now I want to show you the biggest picture that we have. It's from the Hubble telescope, and it's this. Now, this might not look super fancy, okay? But each one of these little tiny dots, let's just pick this little dot right here. This little dot equals one of these, or one of these. And this giant thing that's trillions of miles long is now a tiny little dot on here. So you thought our little planet was small. On this one, our little planet would be essentially not even there. It's that small. Guys, I want you to tell Sadev to pick his brain up off the floor. Take it out now because my brain's good. I've got it to stay in my head. But anytime someone tells you that, they are the most important thing that's going on right now, you can just tell them and be like, you're not important. You are not that big. Our universe is billions upon hundreds of billions of light years long. And you are not the biggest thing in this world at all. All right? Like, God created us to be incredibly giant. And we are just small little parts that we play here on Earth. And our Earth is this little dot. And this little dot is almost invisible in a place full of trillions upon trillions